it's time to make some wrong things right. Help me bring supers back into the sunlight. We need to change people's perceptions about superheroes, and Elastigirl is our best play.
Better than me?
Incredibles 2 is directed by Brad Bird and follows the Parr family through the aftermath of the 2018 movie The Incredibles. Alright, that opening sentence seems simple enough, but let's talk about it for a second. First of all, Brad Bird is one of my favorite directors right now. He's directed some favorites of mine, including The Iron Giant, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which is still my favorite of the Mission Impossible movies. True, he also directed Tomorrowland, but hey, not even Brad Bird can hit a home run every time. Also, when I say follows the Parr family through the aftermath, I mean that Incredibles 2 quite literally picks up where The Incredibles left off, with the attack of the Underminer. But while The Incredibles leaves us with that happily ever after vibe, Incredibles 2 addresses the elephant in the room. That being, just because supers showed up to save the world from Syndrome doesn't automatically make using superpowers legal again. This sets up one of the two major story arcs for Incredibles 2, that being the legalization of superheroes. The other major story arc is that of Bob adapting to the role of Mr. Mom while Helen is off advocating for superhero kind. Inside the arc of Bob being a homemaker are the subplots of Jack's newfound powers and Violet's boyfriend woes, which are both hilarious. I was wondering how they would go about explaining Jack's seeming random collection of powers, but it makes sense, and they use it to great effect. Almost all of the original cast is back to voice their respective characters. Craig T. Nelson is Bob Parr, aka Mr. Incredible. Holly Hunter is Helen Parr, aka Elastigirl. Sarah Vowell is Violet Parr. Samuel L. Jackson is Frozone. And Brad Bird is Edna Mode. Not surprisingly, Dash Parr has been recast with newcomer Huck Milner as the actor who originally voiced Dash. Spencer Fox would have been 10-ish when The Incredibles was filmed and would be 25-ish today, while the character of Dash would not have aged at all. While there are a host of new faces in Incredibles 2, the only ones really worth mentioning are Bob Odenkirk and Catherine Keener as Winston and Evelyn DeVore, the brother and sister duo intent on bringing superheroes back into the goodwill of the public. Let me start by saying Incredibles 2 is a fantastic movie. It hits the ground running and only slows down a little in the middle. Unfortunately, this is due to the movie's only notable flaw, the big bad. The reality is that, much like its predecessor, Incredibles 2 is less about superheroes fighting a big bad and more about the dynamics within the Parr family as they attempt to cope with being supers in a world where being a super is illegal. The difference, however, is that The Incredibles has a fantastic supervillain with a very believable reason for being so, and even a justifiable endgame. It also gives the added bonus of teaching a fantastic life lesson that eschews the participation trophy mindset by pointing out the obvious dangers of said mindset.
But Dad always said our powers were nothing to be ashamed of. Our powers made us special. Everyone's special, Dash. Which is another way of saying no one is.
I can't believe you don't want to go to your own son's graduation.
It's not a graduation. He is moving from the 4th grade to the 5th grade.
It's a ceremony.
It's psychotic. They keep creating new ways to celebrate mediocrity, but if someone is genuinely exceptional,
This is not about you, Bob.
And when I'm old and I've had my fun, I'll sell my inventions so that everyone can be superheroes. Everyone can be super. And when everyone's super, no one will be.
Incredibles 2 has neither an interesting bad guy nor a life lesson. I'm fine with the lack of life lesson because, let's be honest, if you've developed your moral standards and worldview from watching movies, you've got some serious life changes to make. However, the lack of interesting bad guy is far more notable. Incredibles 2 attempts to do a bait and switch with the bad guy that you can see coming from a mile away, and the story behind why the bad guy is bad lacks the emotional tie-in that Syndrome had in the first one. I had two concerns going into this movie. One was that, considering the storyline, we would get beat over the head with feminist propaganda, and the other was that Bob would get the same treatment that Hollywood gives most dads these days, that of the incompetent but lovable oaf that is simply incapable of doing anything that is traditionally done by a woman. Fortunately, neither of these happened. Both Helen in her role as the representative for superhero kind and Bob as a father thrown into the unfamiliar role of homemaker are given the respect due to their roles without pushing either too far. By that I mean Helen is not portrayed as the perfect superhero, nor is Bob portrayed as the perfect dunce. Both of them are presented with learning curves that they both rise to in their own fashion. I should have expected as much from Brad Bird, and next time I see him, I owe him an apology. He's often accused of being influenced by Ayn Rand, which he in turn denies, but having read Ayn Rand and being a libertarian myself, it's very difficult to look at Bird's work and not at least make a comparison to libertarianism. Calling him an objectivist might be going a little far, but I'd be surprised if he didn't fall somewhere in the libertarian spectrum. Anyway, there really is very little wrong with The Incredibles 2 outside the whole villain issue. The acting is fantastic, as expected. The animation is second to none, as expected. The storyline is really good, as expected. It brings the funny when needed, the action when needed, and pulls the heartstrings when needed. It is a nearly perfect movie, and I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 stars. Is it better than the original? I'd say no, but only just. That's enough for now. Have you seen The Incredibles 2? Which of the two do you think is better, and what is your favorite Pixar movie? Let's hash it out in the comments, plus like and subscribe, and I'll see you back here next week with my review of Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.